Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review What If? Episode 5. Or Marvel's What If. Going into this episode, I would have to say, hands down, this has to be, like, the best Marvel What If episode. And some people may feel differently. Some people might just say, nah, like, really, I liked this episode better, or blah, blah. Like, to me, this is, like, everything that I wanted, because this feels like, yeah, we do have to forcibly reference some kind of movie somewhere, but it feels like 90% of this episode is to be its own thing, in which I was just floored about. And also, it seemed like there was a scarce limit of people who were to make it out of all this, which I thought was really, really fun. Just having the people that were kind of incorporated in this episode was just like, man, this is really fun. Some people may not understand who not everyone is. There is to be this one character who is to just have this like kind of outfit on, and there's to be one person that doesn't have like a superhero suit on, and like a lot of people obviously ask who the heck this person is. This guy is actually Kurt from the Ant-Man movies. The guy who is connected to T.I., the rapper T.I., and they were to be like thieves with Scott Lang's best friend, who they had kind of like a cluster of like thief guys with them. Kurt is actually one of them. So if people don't know who that actually is, I've solved that for you, just in case people are just like, okay, who the heck is that guy? So that'll be probably the only like real, true, hopefully legitimate spoilers of what goes on here. So this story is of course about what if zombies. Really, the only thing that is connection to the MCU from this episode is really Avengers Infinity War, but you really don't need to know much about Avengers Infinity War to understand this film. Really, it just kind of easily pieces everything together to where you can just not have to really understand anything going on with the MCU, which is great. It's its own thing, thank God. Because I wanted something heavily original, and this kind of fit that bill perfectly. So like there was a lot of connections to a lot of stuff where I was like, ooh, like, man, this is an exciting part of this episode. There's so many things where I'm like, oh man, like there are also parts where I was just kind of like, okay, I don't reasonably understand why this person got infected. And immediately I just had the complaint of just like, well, why is it that like a lot of the big names got infected? Like you would think that easily like Captain America's, Doctor Strange's, certain kinds of characters would have easily not been able to like, especially because freaking like Doctor Strange immediately if he was to eventually gotten any part of a like to find out anybody is a zombie, he would just be like magically away, magically delicious. It seems like we have Doctor Strange's cape doing a lot of work in this episode, but also it seems like we end up continually finding out that Hank Pym just needs to die. Sadly enough. Like, we need to kill this guy off because he is really just effing up a lot of the alternate timelines of the What If series. So if I could have easily just taken any episode and just killed him off, so like that would have eventually stopped every single horrible thing from ever happening. Because it seems like he continues to be a villain in every single one of these episodes. So just kill this guy off. Because he's like starting everything. He's messing up everything in these timelines. But it's not his fault. Because they just write him that way. They can only figure out how to just mess with this character and make him evil consistently for whatever reason. So going on in this episode, the most fun Especially what they are doing with Spider-Man in this episode is really fun. Uh, just really, there might be spots where I might forget something in this episode. It's bound to happen. There's a lot of trickle down going on in here. There's a lot of stuff going on in this episode, so there might be certain specific details that I forget about. But or there's some stuff that I might just be like, okay, like let's repiece this together. What happens here? Till I can figure it out, because there's a lot of stuff going on. So with that said, so much fun. This was so good. Definitely check it out if you haven't. If you don't have a Disney Plus subscription and you want to avoid that, go ahead into two apps that I've been using consistently. I'm using a consistent app called Yes Movies. You can go into probably an app called Yes Movies and go into the thing where the logo says like Yes Movies and Shows, and you should probably be able to see whatever you want basically through that app. And if you can't, you can go into another app called Fox HD Movies and basically check out whatever you want from there also. There's no fees to that. You can do whatever you want. Check out those apps. But anyways, I'm not getting a dollar, a cent, or dime from anything or any time of which that I mentioned those. So let's go into this. Let's go into spoilers, because hands down, just great. Infinity War tie-in, which Avengers Infinity War I think is kind of a very popular YouTube movie anyways for whatever reason, so I don't know why, but justifiably it'll make people go back and want to know about Avengers Infinity War maybe. So let's go into this. Spoiler time, it's about the time I can spoil this episode. So, the very beginning of this, we have Bruce Banner, who is to becoming from the Statesman, from the Thor Loki ship from Thor Ragnarok, to make his way back to Earth to let everybody know, hey, because Heimdall sent him to Earth to let everybody know, hey, Thanos is coming. But it seems like there is a much more threatening thing than Thanos, because, like, Thanos just eventually ends up just turning into a zombie in this episode, and he just becomes one of them. So going into this one, Banner is to make his way to the Sanctum Sanctorum, crashing through the stairwell like he did in the other movie. So eventually he is to make his way to the Sanctum Sanctorum and no one's there, which I can't really, in all honesty, believe that. I can't believe that, like, the Sanctum Sanctorum could be anywhere in the world and, like, Doctor Strange and Wong are just not in there, just like, hey man, we've been bunkering down for I don't know how long, because this all is, like, freaking crazy out there. But yeah, so Banner just goes and like switches into some like Wong like a getup, and he just starts like roaming out in the cities and is like, why is this city so deserted? Seems weird. I'm scared. What's going on? So eventually we have this reoccurring thing where both Cull Obsidian and Ebony Maw are to come from the Q-Jet to just like, hey, I want the Infinity Stone. Give me the Infinity Stone. And Banner is now like, okay, since I'm by myself, technically now, instead of with both Iron Man and Doctor Strange on my side, I guess I have to Hulk out now. But Hulk is like, no. So it's like, okay, this sucks. So now, like, Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian are almost making their way to Banner to all of a sudden have, I guess, both Wong and Doctor Strange kind of teleport a lot of the Avengers in, meaning teleporting both Strange, Wong, and Iron Man in here to take down both Cull Obsidian and Ebony Maw. And so, like, now we have the part where we're kind of Banner is kind of repeating the same lines that he said about like Thor, where it's like, you guys messed up now, like, ha ha ha, like, so all of a sudden Strange and Tony are really taking these guys out, but all of a sudden, like, Banner is like, "Whoa, you guys are going a little bit far with taking these guys out. Like, holy cow! Like, I'm about to get sick over here." So all of a sudden, the dust settles, and Banner is to find out that the friends of which that he thought he knew, all of a sudden are zombies, and so now we start to see Doctor Strange's cape coming to Banner's defense, trying to stall these characters, but having a very difficult job. Banner is starting to run for it, and all of a sudden, the Wasp is to come in with all of her ant buddies and just try to help out, kind of take down all of these zombies and to kill them all off. And so the Wasp is to just kind of like help out that, oh, like, there's a survivor left. So Peter Parker is to all of a sudden arrive and grab Banner, and this spot is to almost be very reminiscent of a Spider-Man comic book. I think this is Amazing Spider-Man 1 or Amazing Fantasy, or like, it's a big, huge like comic book cover that has been homaged and varianted and all kinds of things hundreds upon hundreds of times, where you just see Spider-Man who has a arm over one person and he's holding like the half of their body and slinging in the air. I'm like, oh my god, they're recreating like some kind of like comic book cover. And I was like, wow, that's kind of an amazing spot, or spectacular, or superior spot there. Anyways, so Spider-Man is to give us the rundown of who technically is still alive through this video, showcasing to us that Bucky Barnes is still alive, and he's bizarrely taking a shower to clean himself down, because the one part of this whole thing is to keep it clean. And we are also to find out that Happy Hogan is still alive, and he is to have this Iron Man gauntlet like we are to see from Captain America Civil War, where Tony Stark was in civilian clothes, so he brought himself an Iron Man gauntlet to just kind of defend himself against a would-be attacker. So, eventually Kurt is to come in as this make-believe zombie and to spray ketchup onto Hogan, who's wearing this goofy shirt that he had got, where he's like, do I seriously have to wear this shirt for this whole thing? But, like, and so Peter is doing this whole video and just kind of, like, making fun of this whole situation because they have to have some kind of fun here. So, really, they're kind of to dip down to us who are the real, like, survivors who are left. Sharon Carter is to survive, which I can't believe that for the life of me. Okoye is to survive, which, yeah, I can really buy that. Sharon Carter, no. Okoye, yes. Bucky Barnes is still alive. Happy's still alive. Kurt is alive. Peter Parker, of course, still alive. But we end up finding out how this whole thing started. Supposedly, Hank Pym, because eventually Wasp is to give us the heads up of how this all started off, because she's kind of like ground zero for it all. So, in this story, Hank Pym is to go off to the quantum realm to eventually find his would-be bride, very zombified. So, or would-be wife, I mean, very zombified. So, Hank Pym is to come back from the quantum realm, zombified himself, almost going and attacking both Wasp and Scott Lang, which eventually leads Scott Lang to have this very Futurama, like, head in a bowl kind of thing for this episode, or head in a jar in this episode, where I was just like, okay, that's a little weird, but whatever, I guess. So, but anyways, but we'll find about the whole, like, Ant-Man later on, that eventually he's only a head of a man left, really. So, so now we basically find the whole patient zero of a thing. So now I can kind of understand why this all broke down. But like I can't understand why like Captain America all of a sudden became a zombie, because if his body can seemingly fight out any infection, why is it that zombification like he could not fight off? But when also looking at it, Captain America in some stories has been a werewolf, so maybe there whenever he's to turn into a zombified or monstrous thing, that is the one thing that his body can't counteract. So basically Captain America has now been a zombie, he's been a werewolf in comic books or whichever, and so now we can like eventually I want to see Captain America be a werewolf in some what if episode. What if everybody was to just turn into werewolves and just annihilate everybody? Would Blade have to come in there and be like taking everybody down? Wouldn't that be pretty sweet? Yes, it would. So, uh, so everyone's idea is to transition from where they are to make their way onto this Grand Central Station place to get a train to make their way out of here, to transition to make it to where Vision is to be, or Ant-Man is to be, so that way they can like simply find a much more secure base layout, whichever. So pushing on. So they make it to Grand Central Station, and so what ends up happening when they make it there is that is that Happy is to just kind of blast some like birds or some kind of weird things, and then both Sharon Carter and Happy Hogan are to be separated from Bucky and Okoye. So all of a sudden we are having Happy, who ends up getting an arrow into his shoulder, and he ends up getting pushed off and being zombified, because we end up finding out that Hawkeye is to be there and Hawkeye is to appear as a zombie. So Sharon Carter is to all of a sudden start to get arrows and being hit by Hawkeye. All of a sudden Happy Hogan is to make his way close, now zombified, getting close to Sharon Carter. Sharon Carter transitions the Iron Man gauntlet to her after Happy is to give Sharon Carter his hand when she twists it around to blast Happy in the face. Sharon takes the gauntlet, and so we have Hawkeye that's kind of shooting arrows into Sharon, but Sharon ends up running off. Here's the thing. Whenever we are to have somebody get hit or someone to get injured, I don't think that they actually showcase that in the very next whatever. Like, I don't see these people actually wounded after the fact, but I guess they're just like, hey, man, like, we don't want to show blood. We want to try to do this as cleanly as possible to try to avoid certain ratings of such. So, Spider-Man, Bruce Banner, Wasp, and Kurt are all in this train trying to figure out how to get it moving. And so that ends up being that, like, Hope is trying to go into the workings of this train herself to get this thing to working. All of a sudden, we start having these zombies starting to surround this train. And so, like, Spider-Man is webbing the train to try to get this thing to, like, start moving. And so now that it's a transition to whoever is still left alive to make their way all onto this train. And so now we have both Spider-Man, who this Doctor Strange cape is trying to defend off all these zombies again around Peter, so that way he can try to get this train moving. And then so once this train starts moving, we have the cape who ends up securing Peter by ramming him through this thing of glass and have him be able to be safe. But we end up finding out that Wasp was also trying to take some people down also and become miniature and start to blast all these characters. But we end up finding out when Hope makes it back onto the train, as well as everyone else does, like Bucky and everyone who's still the survivors of this. We find out that Wasp had got a little cut upon a part of her arm, finding out that eventually, sooner or later, she will be eventually infected. Bruce is to kind of check up on her and to say that she's starting to get a fever and things aren't going so well. So Sharon is to just kind of like make her way through this train just to kind of double check on things to eventually find out that Captain America Steve Rogers himself is to make his way onto this train. And of course, that's when we are to naturally assume that Captain America had killed Sharon Carter. Bucky makes his way down the train to eventually find old Cap just making his way through a meal. So Bucky is to shoot at Captain America. Captain America still has his shield. So Captain America is to, of course, chuck his shield at Bucky. Bucky is to catch the shield. And Bucky is to use this shield against Captain America to kill him off by chopping him in half and having just Captain America just fizzle off. Bucky is to keep the shield and eventually just put it on his back, so he's now basically this world's Captain America. So they eventually make it on. There seemingly isn't much more of any threats to this train until they get to the spot where they are supposed to go, where it's to be some hangar or some bunker that is to have vision. And so here's the problem with that. It seems that where the Vision is at, there is a huge cluster of zombies surrounding this whole entire area, and the train cannot go any further from where it is. It's basically stopped going. So now they're basically just like, okay, how are we going to be able to make it from this train to where the Vision is? I don't think we're going to make it. There's too many zombies here. We're going to die. And so the Wasp is just like, well, I don't think that we need to walk through them. I think that we just need to be above them. So the Wasp all of a sudden becomes Giant Woman, because Giant Man technically was Ant-Man, whichever, so Giant Woman. Evening it out. So Wasp becomes Giant Woman and just starts walking through all these zombies. Like, she's basically infected anyways, so anyone who is to attack her, it's a moot point regardless. So Wasp is holding all the survivors in her hand and trying as much as possible to quickly make it to where the Vision's place is. So Wasp eventually is to make it to them, but it seems that also the Wasp is going to soon succumb to her zombie issue. So Wasp, after delivering them safely to this spot, eventually collapses and falls over and is to eventually become Zombie Wasp at some point. This giant zombie wasp. So, like, it seems like she's not going to convert back to a smaller variation and just easily infect everybody like her dad did, I guess. So luckily for us. So these guys all make it to where the Vision is, and they were like, wow, like the Vision, of course. Like this would be like the perfect way to take down all these people, because a robot, nobody's going to go after a robot. I'm like, so they kind of use the zombie... They use the Marvel zombie kind of style of story technically here, because I know in the Marvel zombie comic book, we basically had Machine Man, we had Jocasta, and any other robot that was still to be alive to basically go up against this whole Marvel zombie thing. And I'm like, So like here's what would have really been cool. What if we would have had, well, I guess since this is after Avengers Infinity War, we couldn't have had like Ultron and anybody else tied from the MCU who technically was a robot, because I guess there are very few left. But I'm like, god dang, like man, there's like a huge missed opportunity here because they're just tying in characters just from the MCU. And what if they would have like recreated another Ultron just for this spot to have Ultron kind of take everybody down? And to have him be like the hero Ultron instead of the villain Ultron. That would have been cool. They could have done any number of spots to just introduce characters into a technical MCU scenario that they haven't used. Robot Man or Jocasta would have been nice, but whatever. To just give us a remembrance of the Marvel Zombie comic book, but I guess they're not going to do that, which sucks. Here. They could have referenced it. They could have just been like, hey, we had blueprints for certain machine robots that are going to eventually be made. Because Vision was just working on like some kind of something. But anyways. So they make it to this place where Vision is to be at. They end up finding Ant-Man, who's in this jar. Who, like, it's not like a liquid jar or whatever. So, like, yeah. So evidently they technically had come up with a cure, I guess, for this whole zombie infection thing. So they were going to use this to have this go out for them to be able to cure this whole thing. Like, Ant-Man was basically the whole, like, hey, we basically cured all this, so let's try and go and, like, send this cure out there. So while they're at this place with Vision, because Vision evidently with his Mind Stone is to be a kind of hindrance to where people want, all the zombies want to see a good distance away from Vision. There is even openings at the gate of where this Vision base is to be at, but no zombie wants to step further into this base because of the Mind Stone. Because evidently Vision had figured out a way to use this Mind Stone as a hindrance or as a thing, as a kind of shield from these zombies to attack any part of where the Vision is. So it's like, okay, man, this is really smart because technically zombies need brains. This is the Mind Stone. Man, that was actually a pretty sweet idea. So I was like, bravo, freaking hand clapping for that situation. The whole Vision thing, I'm like, God, that was brilliant. Like, using that Mind Stone to, like, kind of rewrite this whole deal. So, but here's the problem. So, we go through here, and we eventually find out that Vision has not been such a good guy, let's just say. Because eventually Bucky is to make his way to find T'Challa, who has lost a leg. And I'm like, man, like, I remember, like, T'Challa, I remember him also being a part of the, like, the What If, or not the What If. I remember him being part of Marvel Zombies. Like, he was a big part of that, where eventually I think Machine Man and Jocasta eventually went to Wakanda and had to go and, like, grab, like, Black Panther to, like, so Black Panther was, like, a big thing for that story. So it was good to see, like, T'Challa being used here. So Bucky is to grab T'Challa, and Bucky is to find out what T'Challa was being used for. T'Challa was to be used to be chopped up to be fed to Scarlet Witch, because Scarlet Witch is a zombie. So I'm like, oh my god, so Vision was chopping up frickin' T'Challa to slowly but surely be fed to Scarlet Witch, who is a zombie, and Scarlet Witch is a zombie, a very powerful character that Vision just could not try to protect or shield or whatever from all this, to not let her just die. Vision wouldn't allow it. So Bucky put some shots into Scarlet Witch because he didn't realize she was behind some thing of glass of some sort. So Bucky grabs T'Challa. Bucky tells freaking everybody what's going on with this place because Vision is to tell Bucky what's going on. So Bucky scrambles to get T'Challa. And so T'Challa spills, hey, Vision's the bad guy here. Freaking, he's been using, like, T'Challa to make some freaking T'Challa sandwiches, sadly enough, to be fed to Scarlet Witch. So this place isn't safe either. Like, we need to get the heck out of here. So all of a sudden they're like, man, how could you have done that? Like, Vision, like, how could you have done that? And he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I just, Vision still loves Scarlet Witch and he just can't, like, turn her back on her. So they're like, okay, so we're going to be peacing out here. We're going to be leaving here. We're going to go and get to the Quinjet and frickin' make our way out of here. So, because all of a sudden we see that Scarlet Witch is now free. And so immediately Kurt is to get gobbled up by the Scarlet Witch. And so really that means, okay, we're going to get the heck out of here. So everybody starts running out. Vision starts running out. And so all of a sudden, like, Scarlet Witch is to be, like, making their way to them because Scarlet Witch is to be overly powerful that the cure was not going to work on her, is what Vision was to say, that there was no way for him to get his power against hers to eventually be able to cure her. So there's some people, I guess, that just couldn't be helped. So they're scrambling the heck out of there, trying to get away from Scarlet Witch. And so Scarlet Witch is to grab Okoye. T'Challa's to notice this. I'm like, Okoye! And, like, Okoye is like, run, my king! Like, get out of here! Like, because, so, like, Okoye ends up getting gobbled up sadly by the Scarlet Witch. I'm like, no! Okoye, no! Anybody else could have died. That would have been fine. But, like, Okoye... this is some garbage. But I guess, like, since, like, T'Challa was to be here, I guess Okoye had to die to even things out of this Avengers team. So, what is to happen here is the Vision is to give up his Mind Stone to Banner and just to say, like, hey, man, I can't fight her, so here's the Infinity Stone. I'm like... And then so, like, Vision just, like, ended himself and just... because he was technically also doing the wrong thing also. So they run off, and so Bucky is to now have to try and fight off the Scarlet Witch out of all people. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So Bucky is to tell the guys, hey, I'm going to have to delay this girl as best as I can so you guys can have a shot to make it. So Bucky gets the Captain America shield, starts flinging it, starts throwing some bullets at Scarlet Witch, just to eventually just realize that Bucky is going to die. And so these guys get the Quinjet rolling. All of a sudden, all these zombies start to appear because I guess once, like, the Mind Stone is, I guess, to be away from the Vision, like, I guess really that just starts to compile or collect a lot of these zombies to just be like, okay, the Infinity Stone is technically weaker. So these guys are starting to get the Quinjet rolling, and so that just ends up leading us. So who is to be left now? We have Peter that's left. We have Scott Lang in a jar, and we have T'Challa who's left, and we have Banner who's left. So that's about pretty much all of whoever is left to be really alive here, because everyone else was to die off. Unless I'm missing something somewhere where someone was to be killed. So Banner is to give these guys an opportunity to get the heck out of here. So Banner is to forcibly just run into the zombies until like Hulk, this is time, bro. Like it's time for you to change because like I'm gonna force this change or we're gonna die. So freaking like it's time to change in the Hulk. So now we forcibly have the Hulk having to forcibly change to the Hulk to fight out Scarlet Witch and all of these zombies. So this is almost kind of like a Army of the Dead kind of moment because there's to be one zombie who's to be called this witch in the Army of Dead, in the Army of the Dead. So it's kind of like Scarlet Witch, this witch, and Army of the Dead. It's kind of the similar, same circumstance. So Hulk is just to battle through all these zombies to again give these guys more time. So they rock it off and they go on to just get the heck out of here. And so all of a sudden we see Giant Woman, who was Wasp, go and grab the Quinjet. And so T'Challa is saying like, hey, like we need to get our boosters out as much as humanly possible. So they blast these boosters to get Giant Woman to just kind of just like, no, like, okay, I'll let you guys go. So they jettison out of here. So I guess they're just like high five and they're like, yeah, like we made it, like we did it. And there isn't to be this like this swerve of just like, okay, well, but wait a minute, there's one zombie that made it onto the ship and you guys are all going to die because of that. But they did showcase to us that even Thanos was to eventually become a zombie. So everyone was basically hit by this. So Thanos was to also have the Infinity Gauntlet, who seemingly he got every single stone but the Mind Stone now. So eventually it's probably just inevitable or a matter of time before like Thanos is to probably wipe out this world or turn everyone into a zombie. I don't know, but it would be kind of interesting to see a comic book variation of the aftermath of any of these episodes just to kind of continue this thing as just comic books. That would be pretty sweet. But other than that, I think I'm going to get out of here. I hope everything was kind of like roughly like it was in the episode. There might have been some details that I skipped upon because I didn't want to go into thorough description, diagnostic, whatever of this whole entire thing and all its whatever. And there's a lot of stuff to pull from in this one episode. So I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.